Are you a football fan? Have you ever found yourself wondering, what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help you. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next episode of Whistle Talk. This is Mike D, the referee, coming to you tonight. Tonight, we're going to do a little bit of a solo act. So, going back to doing a little singular, just a little bit of me, myself, and I. But tonight, we're going to be doing it for a playoff edition. Before I dive into our topic tonight, I'd like to ask once again, go on, hit those like buttons, hit those subscribe buttons, comment below, hit all those comments, shoot me an email, Mike D, the referee, all those different things. Help us out with the algorithm thing that we got going on here. Go on to YouTube, put a comment on there. We're all over the place, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. Okay, give me those thumbs up. And if you got to give me a thumbs down, shoot me an email, and hopefully I can help correct that. So tonight's episode, a little bit different, because here in New Jersey, we're going to be coming up to, well, basically we have 2 more weeks left of our season here in New Jersey, because we're in playoff mode right now. We're full-fledged going into playoff mode. And so what I wanted to do tonight is do a little football officiating philosophy, the playoff edition style. So tonight I'm going to focus a little bit on just some key reminders that we get here in New Jersey. We have a great mechanics manual, and in the back of it, it has coaching, football philosophies, officiating philosophies, and just some key reminders and just some different things like that. So as the season is starting to wind down for most of us out there, and if you're lucky enough to continue going on and continue having more games in the upcoming weekends, just some little tips to keep in the back of your mind as you're going through. One of the main things that I was taught, and is actually in a reminder email to us this week, just get the big ones. Get the big ones. So a couple of different things. So we're going to start off here. I got some slides here for those that are able to take a look at it. But our mechanics manual just reminds us that all athletics is governed by some concrete and discrete set of rules. Okay, we all have that manual. We all have the case book. We all have the writing manual. And what the design is to ensure that all the players are getting an equal share of fairness, that we're looking to try to make it fair across all aspects. But the rules, however, are written in the proverbial quote unquote black and white, whereas proper application of these rules to the game situations requires some acknowledgement of some shades of gray in order to ensure that the game flow, the proper application of these rules, okay, is applied. And our mechanic manual goes on and kind of breaks it down into 3 intersecting type of ideas. So the first one is we all have the knowledge of our rules, and that's not really needed to be said. That's what we've been working on all year. We're always in the manual, but just knowing your rules, including the areas of the equipment, timing, pass game, okay, all the different things that we've talked about, a strong working knowledge of the rule case book. Okay, it's a must-have, but that's not the only thing. The second one is a universally accepted set of officiating techniques and mechanics. Now, we've talked about it at length, how the different states set up their own mechanics, especially because we're talking 5-man, 6-man, and in this past weekend, I got to be involved in a 7-man mechanic game. And so understanding and knowing your proper position and what you're looking, what your focus points are, what your key points are, okay, to ensure that the rules are going to be enforced properly. And the third one is you need to be flexible in understanding the intent of the rules. Again, that gray area of the rule. Just what is it that the rules makers were intending with that rule? Okay. Again, we've talked about you could throw a holding penalty just about on every play. Okay. We all know that. But we need to interpret the game rules to get precisely the point of what the intent of the rules makers were talking about. If you're able to answer these questions in your mind, then you're going to have a pretty good grasp and you're going to be pretty prepared for that game that you have that weekend. And again, we're now coming into our state semifinals and overall state championship rounds in the next 2 weeks. So there's some high stakes going on here. So we want to make sure that we're at our peak performance along with the players are having their peak performance. So a couple tips with it. See the entire play. Okay. Don't guess. If you haven't seen the entire play, it's better to keep that flag deep in your pocket than it is to throw it where you don't really know if you saw the whole thing or not. Yeah, that kind of looked wonky, but was it really? And then you go back and you watch it on film and you're like, oh, crap, I can't believe I threw that one. So before you decide to throw the flag, ask yourself, did you see the entire thing? Are you sure that it was a foul? And did it have impact on the play? If you are able to answer yes to all three, then you could possibly throw the flag. If you answered no to any of those, keep that flag deep, deep down in your pocket. We want to, again, keep the tempo of the game going. Past weekend, the game that we had the honor of working pitted two no-huddle teams. One team told us in the pregame that they like to snap the ball every 15 seconds. The other team was on the ball, triple option team. We had a windy day. We had a team that was more of a spread team. We had a triple option team. Well, combined, there was 175 plays run. Great football game. It literally came down to a 4th and 2 inside the red zone, and they came up just short of gaining the line to gain. And there weren't many live ball penalties at all. Okay. We kept the tempo of the game going. We kept the flow of the game going. And in my opinion, everybody had a good experience in the game. Obviously, you got a winner and you have a loser. So one experience is going to be a little bit tainted more so than the other. But I think we did a good job overall. And I went back and I watched the film. It's on NFHS channel. And I watched the game film from Huddle, including the end zone film was sent to us. And I critiqued us pretty hard. And I can say that, all right, there were no flags there that we could go back on film and say, oh, we hit that one wrong. So I think the game flowed pretty good. So just keep these things in mind. See the entire play. Don't guess at it and digest it. Like I've said before, let it marinate. So now what I'm going to finish going on with here is just some different types of ideas where we want to kind of jump at stuff. Don't. Pre-game. I pretty much all the coaches that are out there are probably going to laugh when I say this, and all the officials that are out there listening to it have probably heard it too. But you're probably going to hear it from one coach or the other coach when you do your pregame. Hey, do me a favor, keep an eye on them for illegal man downfield. They're an RPO team. They run a lot of RPOs. Just keep that in the back of your mind. And we always absolutely, coach, we're going to talk about it. And I mention it to our wing officials because here in New Jersey, our wing officials are primarily in charge of having that ineligible player downfield. But just remember, in order for you to have that, you must see the ineligible player being more than 2 yards downfield when the ball is released. If you don't see all of that criteria, when in doubt, it's not downfield. Okay. And that's kind of going to be the theme tonight of this episode is when in doubt. So let's make sure that we do have a player downfield when the ball is released before we decide to throw that ineligible man downfield. And we're going to come back to this when we're talking about a little offensive interference and defensive pass interference. But take a look at that stuff. Also remember, if the pass doesn't go more than 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, let's kind of ignore the ineligible downfield unless they are impeding the defender. So different things like that. If it's a swing type pass and they're just getting out and they're just dumping it off type of thing, you could probably let that one go. Now, if it's an intended screen and they're catching the ball beyond the line of scrimmage, well then, yeah, now we're going to have our offensive interference penalties. But again, Think about what the overall goal of the rule that was written, what the intention of. So that's one of the plays right there, talking about the when in doubt. Okay, so if you're ever in doubt with any of them, you're going to see here, keep it tucked, because if you can't answer those three questions, well, then there's a little bit of doubt. Talking about now formations, we've always talked about, especially the two short wings, about giving the benefit of the doubt, making sure that the receiver punches on, punches off, giving them the benefit of the doubt, and not necessarily adjusting them, but honoring what they're calling. And we're not really looking to throw too many illegal formation type penalties. But now when you start getting, again, the high stakes, when you're starting to get into your trick plays, your unusual plays, this is where you do need to have the highest degree of scrutiny. Okay, you really need to be the letter of the law here on my notes that I have here, the letter of the law in quotes. Okay, making sure that, all right, if they're going to come out and do something a little bit wacky, make sure that they are properly aligned, that they have all their I's dotted, their T's crossed. For instance, your muddle huddle. Okay, you're going to have some teams that are running a muddle huddle on their extra points. There are some teams that run the swinging gate in the middle of the field. Well, make sure that they are legally aligned, okay, that you don't have five guys in the backfield, that there's not an eligible player that is being covered up. So go over those things pregame, because it's on those tricky formations where, yeah, they're trying to get something over. Make sure that they're lined up properly. So that is one that we do want to go with the letter of the law. All right, so now I want to dive into and have a past episode of talking about interference, but now I want to dive into your defensive pass interference again and your offensive pass interference. So on the screen, I've got a list of 6 different things here, starting off with defensive pass interference of when you will call it. Okay, defender arrives early, not playing the ball. Okay, they're contacting, the defender is contacting the offensive player. Usually some form of restriction. Okay, not playing the ball. Playing through the back of the receiver in an attempt to make a play on the ball. We're going to throw that one. Grabbing and restricting a receiver's arm or body in such a manner that it restricts their ability to catch the pass. Well, we're going to have DPI there. Extending an arm across the body, the proverbial arm bar of a receiver, thus restricting the ability to catch the pass, regardless of the fact of whether or not the defender is looking for the ball. Cutting off or riding the receiver out of the path of the ball by making contact with them without playing the ball. Again, we're talking about without playing the ball. And then the last one is going to be a hook and restrict of the receiver in an attempt to get to the ball. That's usually where you're going to see the arm across the body, usually around the waist or something like that, and you're going to see the receiver's body turn prior to the ball arriving. Okay, those 6 ones, yeah, we're going to throw the defensive pass interference. Now, again, here in New Jersey, your DPI, it's a 15-yard penalty, not an automatic first down. But it is a big penalty. Any 15-yard penalty that you have is still going to be a big penalty. So we want to make sure that we have it. So the next slide talks about, well, when we're not going to call it. And this, again, we want to make sure that we do have something. We're not going to call defensive pass interference when players' feet, not feet. When their feet get tangled up with each other, but both players are looking back at the ball. Okay? It happens. The kids trip over each other. Their feet get tangled within each other. They're running full speed while they're trying to look up at an object and thrown through the air. Yeah, they may get tangled up with each other, but if they're making a play on the ball and they just happen to trip on each other, we're not going to throw pass interference on that. We're not going to throw pass interference when each player is making a legitimate play on the ball and there is some type of shoulder-to-shoulder contact by the players coming in from different angles. If they're both making a play on the ball and they just happen to arrive simultaneous, well, once that ball's in the air, that's anybody's ball. That's a free ball. So we want to give the defensive player as much of an opportunity to make a play on that ball as the offensive player. So if they're meeting shoulder to shoulder while making a play on the ball, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We're also not going to throw a defensive pass interference when the contact is so close to touching of the pass that it's difficult to determine which one occurred first. Okay, that bang, bang play. That's the when in doubt scenario. If you can say 100% that player got there early, throw it. But if you're unsure, let's not call that one. That's a big penalty again. That's a 15-yarder, and typically that is going to end up as a first down, but again, not the automatic first down. We're not going to call defensive pass interference when a defender places his hand on a receiver's body. Okay? Hand fighting happens. Okay, typically it's going to be on both sides, but just by having their hand on a body part doesn't mean that it's going to be interference. And skipping down to the last one, if it's not restricting the receiver in any attempt to make a play on the ball, it's not interference. The last one then is going to be incidental contact by the defender's hands, arm, or body when both players are competing for the ball or neither player is looking for the ball. Okay. If there's a question whether the contact is incidental, well, when in doubt, let's go with it was incidental, and we're not going to throw the interference. Okay, that's, again, the big theme tonight is when in doubt, let the kids play football. Let's not be so quick to get that flag out there. Okay, let's not try to find those small things. Let's not go looking for it. Okay, let's see it and then call it. So, switching our thought process now to the offensive side of the ball. Offensive pass interference, little OPI. Initiating contact with a defender by shoving or pushing off, thus creating the separation in an attempt to catch the pass. Usually you'll see this one when the arms are extended. Okay, your bent elbow technique, you're probably going to let go a little bit more, but once you see that good shove creating that separation, well, then we're going to have a little offensive interference there. Driving through a defender who has established their position on the field. That's offensive pass interference. Again, the defense has the right to make a play on the ball. If that receiver goes running through that person, think about a basketball and a charge. Okay, we're gonna have to look at that one. Again, defense has the right to that ball. It's a loose ball. The third one, and this one is probably one of the hardest ones, the pick play. When a receiver initiates contact with a defender downfield in order to prevent them from making a play on a ball thrown to another receiver. Your short yardage plays, okay? We're seeing a lot with, I call it a whip route, where an outside receiver is coming in almost like a slant, putting their foot in the ground, and then bouncing it back outside. Well, that route is 100% legal. But it's when the guy goes in and instead of putting the foot in the ground and bouncing it back out, they kind of run into that linebacker who is going to be covering the next guy going out to the flat. Well, now you have your illegal pick. You see it more often in your short yardage situations, and it's definitely something that's very prominent in your red zone. So when you're down in those areas, again, keep a lookout. And this goes back to our first slide of knowing our mechanics. Because in a lot of different areas, when you get into that situation, 7-man mechanics, 6-man mechanics, sometimes inside that 5-yard line, if you're going in, your mechanics may be a little bit reversed. Here in New Jersey, we used to swap. Okay, our short wings and deep wings used to swap keys. Now we're maintaining our keys to try to prevent this, but at times it's tough, especially now if they're coming out in a trips formation and you got that third player where now somebody has to read a double key. If you got that 7-man mechanics and you got the guy in center field, that's going to definitely help out with that. And that takes out a little bit of that gray area. But again, be sure that you have it. And then picking off a defender who's attempting to cover a receiver. Again, that goes back to the pick play. So those ones, yeah, we're going to throw offensive pass interference on. Also, now we got to talk about, and I don't have it on my screen here, but the offensive pass interference by your linemen that are illegally downfield. Okay, that can be either an ineligible player downfield or an offensive interference if the ball is being thrown beyond the line of scrimmage. So that would be the fourth one here of picking off a defender who's attempting to cover a receiver. So those screen passes that aren't really run so well, again, at this level now that we're getting to in our point of the playoffs, they're being run pretty well. Okay, so we want to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, but there's conditions that happen, games happen, kids are kids. So just make sure that we don't have somebody too far downfield, that the ball is well beyond the line of scrimmage, because then you can have an offensive pass interference. All right, when we're not calling OPI. OPI will not be called on a screen pass where the ball is overthrown behind the line of scrimmage, but subsequently lands beyond the line of scrimmage. If it's going to be an incomplete pass, it's going to be an incomplete pass. Okay, so let's not be so quick to throw that offensive pass interference. It's not going to be OPI or DPI if contact is made by an eligible player after A or B has tipped the ball. Okay, at that point in time, pretty much anybody can get the ball. Okay, we've talked about that one before. We talked about defensive pass interference where there's shoulder contact. Well, we're going to go give the same right to the offensive player. So the shoulder-to-shoulder contact. I have on here a look-in pass, but basically your over-the-shoulder type passes, your deep go balls, your fade routes, different things like that. And two individuals are running downfield, both trying to make a play on the ball, and their shoulders are bumping with each other. And if the offensive guy happens to be a little bit more physical, we're probably not going to call OPI on that one if they're both making the play. And the last one again now is it's not offensive pass interference on a pick play if the defensive player is blocking the offensive player when the contact occurs. This is important because we have seen this one where a defensive player gets hands on and they're riding that receiver inside, and all of a sudden they end up running into another offensive player. That's on them. Okay, so if that happens, or if the contact occurs within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage or extended neutral zone, we're not going to throw OPI on that. Again, when in doubt, keep it tucked. Unless you can hit all those criteria that we mentioned on the previous slide, let's not be so eager to throw that flag. So, got a couple more slides, and this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode tonight, but this one is literally titled When in Doubt. So the first one is when in doubt regarding hits away from the ball near the end of the play. If you have to throw that one, consider it a dead ball foul instead of a live ball foul. So when in doubt, make it a dead ball foul. When in doubt, whether the quarterback has passed the ball or they fumbled, the arm is coming forward. If you are not 100% certain, make it an incomplete pass. Okay? When in doubt of the QB pass or fumble, make it a pass. The next one, when in doubt as to whether the pass was a forward pass or a backward pass, give it the forward pass. Okay? Let's not look to try to make that a fumble. Let the statisticians, if they complete it, give the person some rushing yards instead of passing yards on that. Who really cares about that? That's not our job. But if it's that gray area, if it's directly straight down, if you're not 100% sure that pass went backwards, then it went forwards. And we just actually had this scenario a couple weeks ago with my crew with a fumble. And it was a deep pass. So our deep wing was still about 20 yards downfield, trying to keep everything in front of them. Well, our short wing was letting the play develop and then trailing the ball as the ball was in the air, doing their job. I spun myself to try to help them out because I know the angles with this one going. Receiver caught the ball, was fighting for some extra yardage, and all of a sudden the ball kind of just popped out into another receiver's hands, who then went going forward. And one sideline was screaming that was a forward lateral. The other sideline, well, they weren't saying anything. Well, I didn't have a good angle on it because where I was stationed in the field. The short wing didn't have a good angle on it. The deep wing didn't have a good angle on it. It was that gray area. We didn't call it. We ended up going back and watching it on film. Well, what had happened was the defender punched the ball out of the receiver's hands, and it did go slightly forward. But it went slightly forward as a fumble and not a lateral. So the team that was screaming that it went forward, well, they were correct. But what they didn't realize is that their own defender did it. So when in doubt, keep that thing tucked away. Same thing with a forward pass by the quarterback. Let's see. When in doubt as to whether the runner is down or fumbled prior to being down, let's put them down. Let's make sure that that ball is completely out. See the ball. Okay, that whole thing. So when in doubt, the runner was down. When in doubt as whether a block was in the back or from the side. Again, rule on the side. If it's not a safety issue, if it's not a blindside block or anything like that, if you're not seeing clearly that they're getting the back, the nameplate, the numbers, however you want to refer to it, when in doubt, it's a block from the side. Let's see. This is a big one here. When in doubt as to whether an illegal personal contact foul was fighting or flagrant act, or if it's just a personal foul. Ladies and gents, we're deep. Like I said, we got 2 more rounds left here. We're looking for our overall state champion. These kids have put their heart and soul, their blood and tears into this game. Let's make sure that this is truly a fight before we look to eject somebody. Okay? We don't want anybody being disqualified, ejected, whatever phrase it is that you use in your state. We don't want to take that opportunity away from these players at this point in the season unless it is definitively there. So when in doubt, if you got to call it, call the personal foul, get into the coach's ears, let them know what you saw. Okay? The communication here goes a long way, but let's not try to get a kid out of the game. Okay? It's not our job to coach. We don't remove the player from the field, but if you got to throw that 15-yarder on them, throw the 15-yarder on them. Let the coach know what they did. Let the coach make the decision on if they want to pull that player from the game or not. Most likely, if this kid's a senior, it could be his last game. Let's not pull him out of the game unless we truly, truly have to. The next one here is when we got now fouls that are close to the end zone, especially with coming out. So if you were in doubt, if that ball happened to be right on the goal line, when that holding penalty occurred, or that hold happened right on the goal line, let's put that penalty on the field and not in the end zone. Okay? Let's make 100% certain that if we're going to call something that's going to end up being a safety, let's make sure that it's 100% going to be a foul that occurred in the end zone. So when you're in doubt, keep it in the field of play. The clock. Okay? Again, we got to talk about those when in doubts, especially now, late in the game, rivalry game, state championship game, whatever it may be. Okay? But we have a philosophy on when we should wind the clock, when we should kill the clock. Understand, ladies and gents, when it's late in the game, know the timeout situation. Know what's going on. If A is low on timeouts or possibly even out of timeouts, understand that the coaches are calling plays that their full intention is to catch the ball and get out of bounds to stop the clock. The underlying philosophy is that they will sacrifice a yard or two in order to save seconds on the clock. So if you have a runner who runs out of bounds, put him out and stop the clock. Okay? So here's our in doubts. And the phrase that we always come back to is when in doubt, put him out. If he's driven out parallel to his path, okay, rule him out, stop the clock if he's driven out parallel. If he's driven out even after contact takes him back a step or two, okay, if he could stay upright and get out, take away the forward progress yardage, and then put them out. Okay, so you have the ability to do that. Keep that yard off, and if the coach wants to complain about that yard, now obviously if it's for a line to gain, okay, or if it's fourth down, something like that, well, you may want to sacrifice the yardage scenario like we just talked about. Give them the yardage, but keep the clock going, okay? But again, give them the benefit of the doubt. Also, when a player dives with the ball or some body part and they land on the sideline simultaneously with their another body part, and I have here with their knee hitting the ground inbounds, let's put them out of bounds. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's understand what the intent was in that scenario. If the intent was that player was diving to try to stop the clock, give it to him. Now, consequently, there are times where we are going to keep them in bounds. The runner's forward progress is stopped and the attempt to advance is stopped. and he's driven backwards or held up, and then there's an advance again or try to advance again, wind it. If there's a chance that they may fumble or the ball is stripped, call it, but wind it. Stop the play, prevent the fumble, but wind the clock. Okay? So this one, you're going to give it to them. You're going to go with the yardage, but we're also going to keep the clock going. And next one is, if they're tackled and stopped inbounds and it's only after a second act puts them out of bounds, well, then we're going to keep them in bounds. That's them. Okay, so if they're like trying to gain those extra 3-4 yards and they get stopped and their forward progress gets stopped, and then all of a sudden they decide that they're going to try to get out of bounds, well, your forward progress was stopped well inbounds at that point in time. So that one, we're going to have to wind the clock. Okay, that one's going to be an egregious one. Again, it's going to be one of those scenarios that kind of jumps out at you. So overall, understanding the philosophy and understanding the time of the game, these are the little key things that you're going to want to keep in your back of your mind. And again, when in doubt, put them out. When in doubt, put them out. So, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, today's episode is going to be a little bit of a shorter one. I don't want to keep everybody on too much longer. We're all either on our way to work, but I wanted to plant these seeds in your head. Think about these things as you're going into your game Friday night, as you're going into your game Saturday afternoon. Think about, again, how much time and effort these young men and women have put into getting to where they are getting to. Okay, think about that. You're at a state semifinal game. You're going to your big college stadium, wherever it may be. Okay, understand that, yeah, you've earned the right to be there also as an official, but so have these kids, so have these coaches. So let's do the best that we can to give them the best experience. Let's try to keep that flag as deep as we can, unless we have to call it. So keep those in doubt type scenarios in the back of your mind. Let the kids play football. They're probably high quality teams at that point in time. They're probably well coached teams at that point in time. Let the kids play the game of football. Let the coaches coach the game of football. And hopefully you get to witness a great football game with all parties getting out of there healthy and happy with somewhat happy with the outcome. Ladies and gents, that's all I have for you tonight. We're going to be back to our normal schedule with the interviews coming in our upcoming episodes. I just wanted to get this one out there for you with our playoffs out there. So once again, I thank you all for taking the time to listen. Please go hit those hit those subscribe buttons, leave me those comments, shoot me those emails, do whatever you got to do. Let's just keep going. Good luck to all parties that are still involved out there. And if unfortunately your season has come to a close, keep these little tips and reminders in the back of your mind for next year when you get back out there and when you start diving into those rules and mechanic books again. Well, with that being said, have a good night. This is Mike D, the referee, saying so long for now.
If you're enjoying today's show and you want to show your appreciation to Mike D, you can buy him a beer by clicking on the link in the show notes or go to buymeacoffee.com/Mike D the referee. And as always, make sure to click follow and give 5 stars. Thanks for listening. Cheers.